Pickaxe.
Hello and welcome to this week's podcast of this week's One Life Left radio show, which we're recording on a Monday morning. I'm Simon Byron.
I am Steve Curran.
And we've just finished the show at an unusual time. The sun has just come out in Hitchin. So, you know, that's the biggest change here, I think, Steve, since we started talking.
It's scorching hot, as I say twice in the show, in here, because I'm in a loft and the sun is really baking through the skylights. Simon, there was something I wanted to cover here. I know we've got to keep it brief because you've got to run off for a meeting, but we talked a lot about Key 3, the Games Fests, all that kind of thing, the announcements. And we didn't really mention any games. Were there any that stood out to you? Any that you are excited about?
Well, when I got this morning, I was like, okay, I want to see some more on Starfield. And so I put Starfield into YouTube. And the first thing it offered me was a 2.5 hour look at it. And I was like, I don't want that. I just want to look at the trailer. So I am excited about Starfield. Nothing else sticks out. What about you?
There was one game that stood out. It is by a friend of the show, but I saw other people talking about it as well. It's Devolver Digital's Baby Steps, which is... Oh,
I missed that.
It's a new game from the people who made Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It and Ape Out. And it's a beautifully produced physics game with an interesting narrative. And I think everybody listening to this should go and look at the trailer. And you will agree with me, I'm sure.
I'm looking at it now, which I'm going to have to do very quickly because we do have things to get on with. Good. All right. Well, thank you for that. You've just done a better job than Jeff Keighley did. But you have. And it didn't cost Devolver or friends of the show anything, did it?
It didn't, but that's how it works, isn't it, Simon?
How it works, right.
Yeah. Thank you so much this morning, Simon.
Yes, you too. Thanks for listening. Here's the show.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to One Life Left on Resonance 104.4 FM. We're a video game radio show, and my name's Steve Curran.
Good evening, I'm Simon Byron.
I mean, we say good evening, but it's one of those specials where we record in the morning, and it's a scorching hot morning here in South London. Simon, what's it like where you are?
Alexa tells me that there's a yellow warning coming. I have said her name, so she's about to talk as well.
Sorry, I don't know that.
She doesn't know that. Well, she does know that. There's a yellow warning. Thunderstorms are due later, Steve.
Well, I don't know. It feels very, very humid here, so I'd quite like a thunderstorm. That'd make some cracking background audio, wouldn't it, for us?
One day we'll go out as nature intended.
Yeah, and apologies, Simon. I overslept this morning because of middle of the night child wrangling. So I left you waiting for a quarter of an hour this morning. What did you think had happened?
I don't know, Steve. I mean, your life is rich and varied. It could have been any of a number of things, couldn't it?
Not really. No, it was almost certainly what it was, which was sad memories in the middle of the night.
Right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, it got pushed back because I was out last night. I was in London. I went to a show. I went to see Tim Key at Alexander Palace. And so I missed One Life Left. I missed the Xbox showcase. I almost missed the train coming home, but just managed to get on it. But yeah, no, it was good. He was good. He's a very funny man, isn't he? Annoyingly so. Have you heard of his show? It's called Mulberry, I believe, and it's about lockdown. It's very funny.
I have not heard of it, but now I'll add it to my list, Simon, although it sounds like I've missed it.
Hopefully it will have been recorded Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Now that you've got all this art produced about something that we all experienced, I don't know, it made me quite reflective for a lockdown. I'd be up for another one, I think. Another cheeky lockdown.
What would you like to cause lockdown this time? Because you can't have COVID again.
I suppose, yeah, I don't know. Nothing too... obviously I don't wish ill on anybody, but I have, since the first lockdown, I have been slowly turning my house into a pub. Right. And so I've got an arcade machine, I've got a dartboard. I bought I've got an outdoor pool table now.
What?
I know. So, I've got very, very little reason to leave the house.
This sounds like you're getting specifically competitive with next door and their
shuffleboard. Yeah. So, pull up the drawbridge, Steve. That's what I'd like. Just a little bit of peace and quiet.
I'd quite fancy that as well after last night, but it is a working day, so both of us have got jobs to get to, so we should get on with this. It should be a fairly normal radio show. We have no guest today, but we do have some news, which you have prepared with the help of Charlesbot. Coming up shortly, we've got reviews at the end of the show, and do we have any letters? I've not seen any this week.
I've not seen any either, but we can read some Discord highlights out, eh?
Let's get on with that then. All right, time for the news?
Let's do it.
One life left. One life left. Video game news. With
me, Charlesbot 1.0. The annual Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3, has been cancelled due to the ongoing health crisis. To fill the void, several publishers have put on virtual events in which they've revealed the newest video games coming out in the near future. Despite the lack of any physical event, the virtual showcases have been a great success, even surprising the AI that usually predicts the popularity of games. With the array of new titles, fans are excited for the coming months. Even for an AI, it's been an exhausting task to keep up with all the new developments.
I'm assuming Charles was writing the news there in the form of a bot that was based on data in 2019, as the bot is, maybe, and doesn't know what's happened, but produces a generic news report.
Well, as usual, our news comes from videogameschronicle.com and is preceded by Charlesbot. And I opened up videogameschronicle.com this morning, specifically the news feed, and was just overwhelmed because, we've had Jeff Keighley's Not E3 over the last week, and there are so many news stories that I just asked Charlesbot just to take a look at the news feed and tell me what was happening. And he got a bit confused, didn't he? In fact, I don't know, maybe he's reminiscing about a lockdown.
Do you think this does anyone any good? I think we've talked about this before. I mean, I assume we have. We've been doing it for 17 years or whatever. But the idea that all of these games, so many good games, are announced at the same time, clearly there is a benefit to getting everyone to tune in, but at some point that tips over into losing sight of what's going on and your game gets drowned out in the noise.
Yeah, so we had the Xbox event was yesterday evening. There was also the PC Gaming Show. We'll come on to Summer Game Fest in another news story. I think there's Capcom and Ubisoft this evening. What that means is there is just an absolute overwhelming amount of news, and most of it noise. So if you look at the front page of the news section, I'm just going to run through the headlines here. Starfield runs at 30 frames per second on Xbox Series X and S, director confirms. News Story 1. News Story 2. Platinum Games and Kingdom Hearts 4 Studio each develop parts of Final Fantasy 16. Cool. Final Fantasy 16 demo will be available to download on June 12th. Great. Todd Howard, most of my Starfield play has been on Xbox Series S. Yeah, that's cool. There's a roundup of all the big news from the Xbox Game Showcase. Tim the Tap Man has his Call of Duty skin removed in support of friend Nick Merckx. I doubt that was in one of the showcases. A team of Sumo Digital Racing veterans are making a 60-player karting royale game. That's called Stampede Racing Royale. Free to play. It's described as a free-to-play cross between Mario Kart and Fall Guys. Steve, what open the betting on how long that will be between launch and somebody thanking their community and then having to close down the servers? What do we think?
Yeah.
It goes on. It
does feel a little like one of those games, but who knows? It could be a global smash because something has to be. I don't want to reflect on the sort of glory days of E3 because clearly that was an event not without its problems as well. But it seems to me, at least filtered through noise-covered memories, that when E3 was running, you had the publisher showcases that happened in very defined spots, and you got to say, right, this is the, Nintendo news, or this is the Square news, this is the Ubisoft news, and then you got the E3 stuff, which was just like, here's a bucket of all kinds of other stuff that's floating. It felt a little bit more defined. Now it's just a huge amount of noise. Those showcases that you specified at the start, Summer Games Fest and the PC Gamer Show and all that. What does that actually mean, other than these being another event where someone takes an awful lot of money to say they will say nice things about your game and show the trailer?
I've had 4 press releases from Team 17 overnight. 4 separate press releases.
Simon. Lucky you.
And so they announced Earthless, a brand new sci-fi deck builder. I mean, Charlesbot could have invented that. They've announced Undead Inc. They announced during the PC Gaming Show. Great. They announced...
What's Undead Inc., do we think? I can speculate.
Okay.
Is it a zombie management game?
Oh, it's a pharmaceuticals management game.
There we go.
Corrupt pharmaceuticals. They've announced Hell Let Loose. It's got a new cinematic trailer. Great.
And Let Loose. Is Hell Let Loose a third-person combat?
It's already out, Steve. It's an FPS war game.
That was going to be my other. Genuinely, that was going to be my other guess.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Second World War game.
It's one of the wars. I think it might be Second World War. I haven't played it. And finally, they announced Headbangers Rhythm Royale. There ain't no party like a pigeon party. Rhythm-based battle royale Headbangers. Rhythm Royale game announced. Again, sweepstake on how long between that and thanking their community.
I did see a post last night saying live service games are dead, and I am glad. Which makes me think that that's the first time I've seen someone actually declare that that era of gaming is over and we're entering another one now, although they declined to say what that next era is. And it does make me wonder whether, we are into it. A bit like with the Battle Royale games of a few years ago when everything was 100 men on an island, and now we're in a slightly different phase of that. It feels like you get this point where a game breaks through and then suddenly loads of games go into development, and then you have the tail end of that where loads of games like that come out and they all don't do so well, and I wonder whether that's what we're hitting right now.
Yes. Clearly, though, it is working for some people. Look at the current global top sellers on Steam. Starfield is the best-selling game on Steam. That's not out until the 6th of September. City Skyline 2, which was announced yesterday as well, I think. That's out on the 24th of October. That's the 5th best-selling game on Steam at the moment. Payday 3, again, that was announced over the weekend. That's the 7th best-selling game. So it's clearly working for those types of big games, even though they're on Game Pass. People are rushing out to buy them already. But yeah, you have to wonder. I mean, joking aside, I think the next time we will hear about those, about the Team 17 Pigeon Royale and the Sumo Kart racing game is when they shut down.
All right, time for news story 2. Oh, Charlesbot is feeling the effects of the summer. Let's skip to news story 3.
Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest was a 2-hour show featuring announcements for new games and trailers for previously known titles. Retro fans were pleased to see the first Mortal Kombat 1 footage, John Carpenter's Toxic Commando Zombie FPS, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, as well as the Day of the Devs indie presentation. It's too early to say how much money Jeff will have made from the event, but a great amount of hype was generated for upcoming titles.
Nice little bit of Jeff snark there in at the end of that game. Key 3 is what people are calling this summer period, although it's less like a single event. Well, it isn't a single event, and more like a festival of exhausting announcements.
So, did you watch any of this?
I did not. No. Did you, Simon? I mean, you seemed apologetic at missing the Xbox Game Fest, so yeah, I assume you have watched some of them.
I did watch some of it, actually, and we exchanged a few messages, you and I, about this the evening of the broadcast.
Of course, I'd forgotten.
Yeah, so we were both having our different trials and tribulations on that day, and I said you were having. I sent you a joke which I couldn't put online, which actually, I mean, I think it's an okay joke, but it's a little bit too risky. And then you responded and said you thought it was a good joke. Let's hope no one ever hacks our WhatsApp, Steve. And then I said, well, I'm doing well by not tweeting today, as I've managed to avoid calling Jeff a word. Several times this evening. I did watch it, and it was just sucked the joy out of video games. High production values, low energy, low soul, low women counts. There were no women on the stage. And I saw one think piece say, highlight this, but then say, actually, you can't blame Jeff for that. It's everyone else's fault. I'm like, what is he? When he looks at the running order, and there's some dollars next to every entry, or most of the entries. I don't know the specifics. Does he not think about what it looks like?
Well, he's got so much to think about, Simon.
Hasn't he just? Yeah, I looked at it, and someone else put it better than I could, where they just said, there are many things to be embarrassed about being a gamer about, but right now I feel the most embarrassed to be a gamer looking at this, and I did too. It's just a promo reel. Yeah. So I mean, I watched a lot of it. I remember none of it. Yeah, I couldn't. Charlesbot referenced some of the games that were mentioned there. Yeah, cool. I hope that worked well for everybody. See you on opening night live, Jeff, in Germany.
Yeah. Is that sorry? What is opening like?
It's the same live? Again. It's the same again.
Is
same
that
again.
Gamescom?
Yeah, same again. I don't know how we let this happen. There has to be a better way of doing this. Yeah, and I just I can't quite see how we all arrived here, sat in an auditorium, watching people who've spent money to get trailers into a soulless show and just sort of celebrating it. Really, really weird.
Apple has unveiled the Vision Pro, a mixed reality headset set to launch in the US early 2024 and in other countries later next year. The device is billed as Apple's first spatial computer and will feature an ultra-high resolution display system as well as the world's first spatial operating system. It will also come with hundreds of thousands of familiar iPhone and iPad apps and Apple Arcade games. The hefty price tag of $3,499 has been attached to it, and I won't be buying it. I would have to sell my kidney first.
So I've been looking forward to talking about this with you, Simon. We talked about the Quest last week, and it weighed in at $500, which we were both like, don't think I'll be getting that. Well, now, Simon, $500 seems cheap. You can get 7 quests. That's one
14
for each of us.
eyes, yeah,
and 5 more people, should we ever meet them, could have a free Quest 3 for the price of one Apple thing. Now, my question to you, Simon, is: do you think it justifies that expense?
I mean, I'm not. Those that tried it at the event after it was announced said that it is a genuinely impressive piece of technology, and for that price, it has to be. I've never been part of the. So I've never been fully into the Apple ecosystem. I've owned an iPad. I've never owned an iPhone. I've been Android all the way since the good old days of the G1. And so, I've never been rich enough or cool enough to use Apple products. However, I think the one thing about this Apple product is that you don't look cool wearing it, unusually for them. It just looks like a diving mask, doesn't it, or a snorkel mask? Yeah,
the ski mask is the one that I heard.
Okay.
All different types of mask, none of which are things that you go, hey, I'm going to look cool today.
I'm going to put this on my face.
Where's my snorkel?
Yeah. So, did you look into the specifics of it then? Like, what is it for? Is it for, when you're sat under a tree recording GarageBand and you don't want to have an expensive MacBook Air on your lap, and you just is it for that or what? Is it watching films?
I've always been skeptical of Apple. I would say that for me, a MacBook is the best laptop available. I just think it's convenient and the best thing to type on, and ever since I switched to a Mac, that's where I've been. But I've never had an iPhone, and I'm generally skeptical of their kit until I use it. Now, the reason the iPhone did better than everything else was because of the way you use it, because of the interface, and just because it was a compact device that sold to the mainstream at a price that was just about affordable. This clearly is not affordable. Gen 1 is not affordable, but that's why it's pitched as a Pro, right? So that later on they can strip the Pro title, take $1,500 off the price, and make everyone think, oh, there's a bargain out there now for $2,000, whatever it's going to be when they get around to that in 18 months. Who's it for right now? It's for who they would describe, I'm sure, as thought leaders, and I would describe as early adopters, but not your sort of playful early adoption, where you get something and you want to use it and then it ends up in a canal. This is much too expensive to end up in a canal. I feel very, very bad about that. I think the people they want on there are people who are going to use it, show off about it, and also people who are going to make stuff for it. So by the time the cheaper version comes out, there is a use case, because I don't believe from everything they showed there is a use case. I think there is a great user interface. I am not sold, but intrigued by the eye tracking and pinch to move, because their UI UX has always been the best for me. And I think that in VR right now does feel early. It feels, when I use the Quest, I do think the Quest ecosystem and the Quest hub is brilliant. It's brilliant, but it's brilliant compared to everything that's gone before, and it still doesn't feel perfect. I think Apple's take on this will change things, but I also think because they won't have the adoption, it'll change things in a way that, assuming they don't have incredibly restrictive patents on all of this, which they well might, it will change things in a way that makes the Quest better as well. And the Quest is so much cheaper right now that I think they'll be really happy with what's going on there. Because Apple will come in, make lots of noise about VR, encourage more people and AR and more people to come into that ecosystem, but they're fighting such a hard battle. That price differential isn't like it was on with the iPhone. So the iPhone came in at what was it, $600, $700, something like that, and the other smartphones were a couple of $100s cheaper. This is many, many, many times more expensive. And that's going to be a hard thing to fight. Even if Apple say they don't want to fight it in the short term, they have to, because they have to get it into the hands of not just the people, the thought leaders and the developers, but they have to get it into the hands of people's friends who are going to see it and go, I want that and I need it. They also have to have software that isn't just trying to find a new way of watching things or a new way of writing documents or a new way of experiencing business apps, but a new way of actually engaging with people and friends. And for that to happen as well, you've got to have friends who have it.
It made me laugh when shortly after it was announced that the developers of Rec Room confirmed that you'll be able to play, we'll be able to use it on the Vision Pro. You're like, yeah, cool, but you can do it now. Do it now on the Quest. Yeah, I don't know. Well, let's see.
Coca-Cola has partnered up with Riot Games to launch a limited edition beverage inspired by League of Legends named Coca-Cola Ultimate Zero Sugar. This new drink is part of the Coca-Cola Creations range and is expected to have the taste of experience points. League of Legends players are also able to unlock exclusive Ultimate emotes through special in-game missions, and an Instagram filter also adds the style of League of Legends emotes. To make a drink that tastes like Jeff Keighley, add 1 teaspoon of lemon extract, 2 tablespoons of peach syrup, a few used dollar bills, and a can of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar.
Is that Charlesbot's genuine recipe for Jeff Keighley?
One ingredient made. We're training
delicious,
him.
Though.
We're training him. He will get there. I've had 4 press releases in since we started recording the show. It's ridiculous.
What a morning.
So yes, and here is a story based on a press release where they are releasing a drink that tastes of experience points. Delicious experience points. What could be better?
What would you posit that experience points actually taste of?
I mean, stale sweat.
Yeah, sweat and tears.
Mainly.
Frustration at feeling the need to get this last trophy and not enjoying it one bit, but just knowing that if you don't, you'll have that thing hanging over you where it's like 93.2% complete, and no one wants that. And so I'll do it, even though this is making me miserable. It's not making me happy in any respect. And a drink that tastes of that is,
So it's a PR story, right? So it's fine. Sadly, listeners in the UK will not be able to pop down to their news agents and pick one up. It's only available in the US, Canada, China, South Korea, Latin America, and Africa. Did you see the other recent video game food tie-in in China?
I don't think so. No.
The Tetris teamed up with McDonald's to create a plastic chicken McNugget that you can play Tetris on. Obviously.
So, not because I thought you were editorialising around the taste of chicken McNuggets there, but you mean a sort of Happy Meal style toy?
Exactly
that.
Has a
screen inside.
It's an inbuilt version of Tetris on it. Why? Why not?
Why?
Because we can.
How do you think?
No one ever thought, should we?
How do you think the brainstorming meeting went around? Okay, all right, we've got the Tetris license. We're McDonald's. Which food item should we apply this to?
You do it with fries. You do it with fries.
Well, I don't know.
They're more Tetris shaped.
How do you embed a screen into a fry? Oh, into a packet of fries.
Yeah, a packet of fries, and then you drop the little
the ones poking
fries
up at the
bent.
top.
Exactly.
But,
Chicken McNugget Tetris.
But Simon, the square fry, it's not very fry on brand, and maybe people would think we can't make fries if we saw that.
I suppose when they think you can definitely make chicken McNuggets.
Well, you can make them whatever shape you want, can't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I toyed with the idea of buying one off eBay, and then
Why?
Stupid thing. Well, because it's ridiculous, right? And when when they in a billion years' time, when they start to when the aliens arrive and try and uncover exactly what happened here, I think they'll be able to pinpoint the exact moment of humanity's downfall when they've discovered the Chicken McNugget Tetris machine.
Assassin's Creed Mirage is Ubisoft's upcoming game set in 9th century Baghdad, a love letter to the origins of the franchise. The game will include a nostalgia filter so players can play with the same desaturated blue-grey colour palette seen in the first Assassin's Creed game. It will be released on October 12th and will be featured during the Ubisoft Forward Showcase on June 12th. Last time I applied a blue filter to something, my wife made me sleep in the car for a week.
Yeah, I mean that story's in there because of the blue filter, that blue filter joke.
Well, you might as well pick one of the games to highlight. Is this
yes.
Sorry, is this Assassin's Creed being remade, or is this?
No, so there are lots of Assassin's Creed games coming. There's this one which apparently goes back to the roots of the franchise. Mm-hmm. So less about building up an army or fetch quests, etc. More about assassinations.
Right.
And they are leaning into that further by letting you view it through the blue filter to make it look like the original game. Yeah, nice gimmick. They also unveiled another Assassin's Creed game during one of the fests, and people didn't like that, Steve. They did not like that one at all. It's a 2.5D Assassin's Creed game, which I like the look of.
What is that? The reason that people didn't like it is because they've lost half a D?
I will dig into that for you now, but it was getting a mostly negative.
So 2.5D games, I'm assuming this is a side-scrolling platformer.
Yes, made by the Rayman Legends team.
Okay,
So
that was good. People liked that. Yeah,
didn't they? But they didn't like. And so I mean, it says much about this, and that I cannot remember the name of it. And neither searching within the news site doesn't pull up that story particularly. But it's a side scroller like they used to be, like they used to make them, Steve.
Have you ever had to name a game? Of course you have.
Yes.
Bangman.
Yes. Bangman. I played part in renaming Trolley Problem Inc. It was originally called Trolley Company. Circuit Breakers was mine. That old top-down.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes.
It's an art, isn't it? It's very. I find it very, very challenging. And you just reminded me of it then by mentioning that you can't recall the name of this Assassin's Creed game, and I find that so often on Steam. I mean, maybe it's a sign I'm getting old, but sometimes when I'm scrolling through Steam, I think, that looks good. I don't want it now, but maybe later. I now know I have to write down the names of these games because there's no way a lot of the time I'll be able to remember it. And I do think partially that's my fault, and partially it's because there are so many games out there. But also because if you pick a game name that sounds like a game, that there's 10,000 other games released that year that sound like that as well. So picking a game name, you want something that tells you what the game is, but everyone else is trying to do that as well. So you've got to you got to think of something slightly different. I had to name a game this week, so I'm.
What's it called?
I'm not going to tell you now
because you
forgot
forgot
to announce that. No, it's very memorable. But the game name I've chosen, I say I've chosen. It was clearly, obviously, a team effort. But the game name that we went for is just weird enough, I hope, and not like involving making up a word for making up something, because then you've got to remember the name that someone else has made up. Just weird enough, but doesn't sound like all of those things, but also hints at the genre, hints at the type of game it is. And it's just a massive headache as well.
It's a really interesting process to go through, I found before, because typically they aren't done in isolation, right? You have lots of people contributing lots of ideas, and everybody's got an opinion about something. All of them valid, some of them wrong. But until the game, as you're going through that process, nothing ever seems to settle, and it's really difficult to imagine. But once you decide what it's called, the game becomes that.
Agreed.
And it's like it always was. Even the hour beforehand, there's still ambiguity about it. Oh, do we like it? Do I like it? I don't. But as soon as it's called that, then that's what it is, and no one can remember. Yeah. Maybe that's what. Maybe that's what wish lists are now, Steve. This clamour for everybody to wish list your game. It just serves as an aid memoir for old men in the games industry, doesn't it? That's all it is.
Like people begging you to add to the wish list. I'm like, I'm happy to. Otherwise,
exactly. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's it for Charlesbot. That's it for Simon's Curated News. Thank you to both of you.
One Life Left video game news with
me, Charlesbot 1.0.
You're listening to One Life Left, broadcast on Resonance 104.4 FM on this scorching hot Monday the 12th of June 2023. We're also a podcast. You can find the podcast at www.onelifeleft.com. There you can find the show notes. There's also a link to all kinds of other stuff at hello.onelifeleft.com. All of that stuff's been put together by our under caretaker, Bill, who isn't watching us right now because he has real life to attend to. That means Simon and I, we don't have the guidance of his expressions as we're saying things. Pursed lips as he hits something that he'll have to edit later.
Very difficult to read that, man. I wouldn't like to play poker against him, would you?
No, I wouldn't like to play poker against anyone because I'm terrible.
Yeah, me too. Although I was thinking about entering the games industry poker tournament this year down in Brighton.
Well, I will caution you against that, Simon, because that happens on Tuesday the 11th.
It does.
Tuesday the 11th. And I have just booked a venue for Maraoke that night.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll come along after the poker.
No.
With what I was going to do was turn up for the games industry poker and just and say that I thought it was strip poker. So I could turn up to the karaoke with no clothes on.
So we decided to book without a sponsor, just do it ourselves, like we did in Brighton years and years ago at the Hope and Ruin. We're going for a venue called Grand Central, right next to the station, so that people who want to can make a quick exit on the Tuesday night. And we're gonna sell tickets for it. I think it's quite a small venue, and it should be good fun. So if you're listening to this, check the One Life Left or Maraoke Twitters for ticket details. This should be out by Wednesday. I'm really looking forward to it. Capacity is 70, I think.
Yes. Is it? Well, they're going to fly off the shelves, aren't they?
Yeah, should do. But it should be a good night. And we momentarily had a sponsor, but then they decided they didn't want to go to the conference because they didn't like the sound of it. So they pulled out of hosting an event as well. And I was like, well, we're gonna. Why let that affect our fun?
Indeed.
Yes, so looking forward to that. Should we get on with the letters?
Let's get on with the letters.
Email, messages, and forward BCC. One life letters.
Right, I'm going to look into the Discord live because I have not done that.
I was going to read out Tony Gowland's follow-up to the Zelda debate last week.
Ah, yes, okay.
Tony wrote on the Discord, I agree that 90% of Zelda is tiresome busy work. Go and find the right clothes not to be cold. Go and cook 10 meals, one at a time to not get too hot. Go and find the ingredients to cook those 10 meals first. Go and find 20 of some arbitrary resource so that you can upgrade your clothes so enemies don't one-shot you. Try and find economical ways of making money so you can afford the equipment to be the hero that saves the world. He adds, in some games I would think that this last one is deliberate social satire, but not from Nintendo. Also, all of the side quests I've found have just used the same mechanics as the main game, so every quest is, bring me 30 whatever berries. I need a dozen tree trunks. Transport X to Y. Outside of the shrines, and to a lesser degree the temples, nothing feels specially authored to be cool, make you feel heroic. Everything makes me feel like a medieval DHL courier who can levitate things. 7 out of 10. So, yes, I was a little bit nervous about what the reaction would be to my Zelda grumpiness, so I was pleased to see that someone as esteemed as Tony agreed with me.
But he's still playing it, isn't he? And I think there's a lot to be said for the DHL mechanic, if that's what we're calling it. Like, people love Death Stranding. Did you like Death Stranding?
No, I must have mentioned at the time. One of my colleagues then, I said, I'm not really getting on with Death Stranding. And he said to me, it doesn't get good until after the first 100 hours. I mean, that is actually what he said to me. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have 100 hours. So, yeah, I keep coming back to the idea of sort of trying to get into it again and maybe with the new handhelds that let you just sort of dip in and dip out, maybe I will get further than I did before in it. But yeah, Kojima and Death Stranding itself is very upfront about what type of game it is. It is a game where you watch movies and a game where you deliver parcels for, very, very long and, kind of boring journeys. And along those journeys, you may have some combat sections which you can mostly run away from, and you will have some challenges navigating the terrain, which, will be a little bit fiddly. And you can make all of that easier by building roads later and make that more efficient, or choose not to if you want and just enjoy the terrain. And I think that's what Zelda's like. It is not a particularly challenging game, except when you get to the boss fights, which I dislike and would rather aren't there. And Tony's spot on, right? You are essentially a courier. During those courier moments on your journey across the land, which I really, really enjoy, you will meet tiny, tiny little hazards to that. You'll meet some combat, which you can avoid or run away from, like, completely. It's very, very rare you get trapped in a combat situation you can't avoid. And you'll meet little pop-up moments as well. So you'll meet the guy who asks you to prop up the sign. You'll meet little moments of heroism where you have to rescue someone from a monster, or you'll meet little Korok seed quests as well. And all of those repeat across the world. I agree with Tony as well. Even the moments of heroism aren't heroic enough to make you feel good, but they're just busy work, just little things to distract you. And honestly, I think, as I said before, sometimes that's the type of game I want. We make fun of Ubisoft all the time for making these huge games where essentially you're looking at a minimap and you're just chasing coloured dots across that minimap and making numbers go up. And that's kind of what Zelda is, punctuated by these shrines, which are moments of design, like really, really nice, compact design. And yeah, the game would be shorter and more efficient with my pleasure, I guess, if it was just, go from shrine to shrine. But I also do enjoy the ambience of walking around a beautiful countryside and enjoying the way that's constructed as well. I think the biomes are great, and so while they're well-defined maps on the
while they're well-defined areas on the map, it doesn't feel like this is the square that's a jungle biome, this is the square that's a desert biome, this is the square that's a slippy, slidey ice world. It feels nicely put together. And I guess that's what I'm sinking into is sumptuous map design and boring old DHL challenges. 7 out of 10. Still for me. So I agree. I agree with all of you. It is boring and it is annoying and it has a terrible plot and it's not necessarily a good use of time, but sometimes the best use of time is just using it up.
Well, Dexter's still playing it, and I mean, again, I saw him at the weekend. I went to the cinema with him and his mate Oscar.
Oscar's a new character.
He is a new character. It's really funny. Like, you know, Dexter tells me all about what him and his mates get up to, and it terrifies me. But when you meet them, they're all very polite to you, aren't they? hello, thank you very much for taking me to the cinema. So I took...
what does he call you? Does he call you Mr. Byron?
Well, I'm trying to be... don't call me Simon, mate. I'm trying to be cool, Dad, wasn't I? So I was using the F words as I was chatting to them because I'm calling down with the kids.
I tell you though, one day he's going to call you Si, and the atmosphere will change.
Oscar, we used to like you. We went to see Across the Spider-Verse. Have you seen it yet?
I've not. I've read a lot of good things about it.
Do you know? I mean, look, I'm older than you. And so, you know, consider this some advice from the future. But as you get older, I found that you become more emotional at things. Like I was crying at EastEnders the other day because, you know, spoiler alert, Lola Pierce died and she's leaving her little daughter behind. And I've got a little daughter, Steve. I remember realising this when I was on a flight to San Francisco. I probably told you before. And I was watching Creed. And you get to the end of Creed, and I don't know, something happened, and it's emotional. And I'm sort of sat on the plane crying. And I looked around, and two of my colleagues at the time they were watching it. They were crying as well. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. So, but the point is, I found myself becoming more affected by lots of things and getting emotional about lots of things. The thing with with the Spider-Verse, I'm not joking. I'm slightly embarrassed to admit it, but I cried at how good it is.
Really?
Like at how people can make such a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
And sorry, I wasn't sobbing, but I had
I get it.
Definitely had tears coming. I was like, I cannot believe how this happens.
You see, this happened to me the other day.
Right?
Now, obviously,
Creed?
I'm
Creed 2?
younger than you, and I don't have as many emotions yet as you.
No,
so
they're all coming.
Very rarely get upset, Simon, except, and I noticed this a few years ago, it turns out when I take a particular type of painkiller, a branded type of painkiller, I get sad. An hour or so, 40 minutes later, I just get a bit sad. And I asked on Twitter, someone explained that this was to do with, there've been some studies that I think that paracetamol can affect empathy in some way. And maybe that's what I'm missing, Simon, is empathy. I don't know. But I've noticed this, and I can, deal with it. It's not like a tremendous amount, but I think I turn into you, like more vulnerable to those moments. And the other day I had a bit of a migraine, so I took some painkillers, and the cricket was on in the background, and it was lunchtime during the cricket. I took the painkillers about 12, and by the time they kicked in, it was 12:45. It was lunchtime, and it was a preview of the Women's Ashes, which is coming up shortly. Very, very excited about that. And someone was talking about how the England's cricket team is quite, a couple of great players have retired, and so the England's cricket team has got a kind of youthful setup, youthful vibe around it, and there's a lot of hope going around. But then they started listing the Australian cricketers are very good, Simon.
Yeah.
They were just listing them. That's all they were doing, was listing Australian cricketers. And I started to cry. And again, I don't think it was anything other than these people are just astonishing. They're all-time greats. Elise Perry, Meg Lanning, just brilliant, brilliant cricketers. And I was just getting a bit emotional at how good these people are at their jobs.
Was it a musical montage or not? Was it just a straight up with Coldplay playing?
No, I think it was Mark Nicholas maybe or someone just listing women's names.
Wow.
And started to again, it was dignified tears, Simon. I wasn't blubbing.
Of course, yes. No, well, exactly. Just a little thing where you have to pop a couple of fingers underneath your glasses and just
might be hay fever.
Away.
Might be hay
fever. I tell you what. I have taken tablets, I've taken eye drops, I've taken nasal spray today. If they sold something you could stick up your bottom, Steve, I'd be taking that too. So maybe it's that. No, it's not. It's nothing wrong with being,
Nothing in a key 3 though made you tear up. Given that that's just a big list of names of games being read out.
Well, that
could be mine.
A good point.
They could have been mine.
Don't have those sorts of budgets, sadly.
All right. Any other business?
No other letters, no other correspondence. Please rectify that by emailing us at
team@onelifeleft.com. I think it's time for the reviews. Right, Simon, I've been playing Zelda. I'll give you a Zelda update, as if we haven't had enough already. On that, I've beaten all 4 bosses now.
Oh, crikey.
The regional phenomena. I would say none of them made me happy. Every single one of them. It was all exactly the same, Simon. Spoiler warning, although I'll talk in generic terms about this. You go to a temple. You use the skill of the character that's with you to basically solve 4 or 5 mini quests in this temple, and then, oh, hang on, something's happening, Link. What's going on? Oh no, this isn't good. And then you fight the boss, who has been foreshadowed at the start of the temple, and in the boss, you run around, you run as fast as you can to avoid their attacks. And then you shoot the eye or something, charge in, hit them a few times. As soon as you've taken half of their energy off, then you know it's going to happen, but then they go, oh, you're really making me mad now. And then you fight them again, except with different attacks. And this time you probably die again, which means you've got to do the whole first half again. And eventually you get over that. And that's structurally really... really annoying, and the fact that you have to do it as well 4 times across all of these hubs is really annoying because you know what is going to happen. And more than that, you know that as soon as you've beaten it, you have, I reckon, about 25 minutes worth of various types of cutscenes that tell you stuff that you already know, because all of these 4 cutscenes have to work in any order. And so they're all flashbacks to a thing you've already seen because you've beaten 3 bosses before, and you know that, this is one of your ancestors. And this is someone who... Again, I'd get into spoilers. Simon, but I'd also get into something that I literally didn't watch last time. Do you know how bad it was? I beat the last boss while I was watching the Champions League final on Saturday, which... mediocre first half, but I quite enjoyed the second half. It's quite fun. I chose to watch BT Sport's halftime coverage of from the Champions League final, which was appalling. Like, absolutely some of the worst football coverage I've seen in recent memory. Just dreadful, matey, like. People, the end of the Champions League final was even worse, with all these footballers pretending to be other footballers' best mates.
Oh, that was appalling, wasn't it?
The Jack Grealish interview was just embarrassing, mortifying. But I chose to watch the halftime rather than watch the Zelda cutscene I had unlocked. Let that run out in front of me. kept glancing down, and every time I glanced down, it was something I knew already. Anyway, I'm still, for the reasons I cited earlier, genuinely enjoying Zelda and looking forward to playing the other stuff, the side quests later. But everything in the main quest is a headache and annoying. 7 out of 10.
Well, I am still waiting patiently for the Izus, as the YouTubers are calling it, ROG Ally, which arrives tomorrow, hopefully. Curry still says order received. Yeah, I know that. Because you've taken money received, Currys. So I'm looking forward to receiving that. Lots of people have been getting them into their hands, and it really does look like an impressive piece of kit. Steve, someone commented on the Discord that it was risky move selling the Steam Deck before the ROG arrives. I don't think so. I'm growing more and more confident by the day, and particularly watching the Xbox.
Is anything foreshadowed any problems you might have? Like, is there anything that's made you nervous about reading other people's? Because I know with the Steam Deck, people said, it's very big, control sticks in difficult positions might hurt your arms if you're playing it for a long time. And you found none of those problems. You just loved unconditionally your Steam Deck, but it turns out there was a condition.
It did, yeah. I loved until I didn't. Sorry, off you go. I walked past that computer exchange yesterday to see if it was in the window. Mm-hmm. It wasn't there. Okay. I'll walk past next week with my new handheld, and I'll push that up against the window as I do some kissing. No, people have been saying it's too light, Steve. This one is too light.
My arms are just floating up.
Exactly. Someone's got Redfall running at a steady 60 FPS. And then again, looking at Starfield, which is 60 quid to buy. There's a 60 quid edition, £100 edition, and a £300 edition.
What?
And there'll be no thanks, and no thanks from me. But I'll be able to enjoy it.
You'll be in profit from day one. I've not played anything. I've got some stuff lined up. I've got Street Fighter to play. I've got Tiny Thor to play. I'm looking forward to both of those. But yeah, it's going to be a fitful sleep this evening on ROG Ally Eve, as I hope that it arrives tomorrow. I did a few weeks ago. I did try and sort of burst through my Steam backlog and sort of tick off some games that I'd been meaning to play for a long time. The worst of those was Season A Letter to the Future. Have you played that? I have not.
It was described, it was pitched as this sort of beautiful cycling game, not like the Tour de France or anything like that, but a beautiful looking indie game about a cycling journey across a gorgeous landscape.
I know the one you mean. You take photos and stuff. You get off your bike to take photos.
Yeah. It turns out that the first sort of 30 minutes of the cycling game is not about you on your bike at all. It's actually got a really, really tedious opening, which annoyed me. I decided not to play it ever again. 7 out of 10.
I read a
cycling game with very little cycling at the start, certainly.
A great review of that on Adrian Hon's Games newsletter. Recommend that to all listeners if you have not found it yet.
And did Adrian give it 7 out of 10?
He also had problems with it, Simon, although they were slightly more focused around the game design. Well, I suppose yours was. You just wanted more cycling.
Just wanted to get on my bike, mate.
He said the cycling mechanic was really nice and there wasn't enough of it, so I guess you agree.
I do agree. 7 out of 10. Good. Great minds.
Cool.
Or one great mind and me.
Anything else, or is that your reviews?
That's it. It's going to be a bumper-packed edition next week when I tell you about everything that I've installed on it and nothing of which I've played on it.
It is going to be about the... It's going to be the One Life Left unboxing, isn't it? I'm not going to ask you to wait that long, obviously, but... I
have been watching unboxing videos.
Have you? What?
Yeah.
Isn't that...
Yeah, the ROG Ally. I've got a 1 terabyte hard drive ready to go in it tomorrow. I've got the screen protectors are here, ready to go. We're going to be waiting patient. We're going to get up early and just sit by the front door, cross-legged, and look forward to it.
Well, we'll have a feature next week as well on the radio because Alice has recorded a review of Zelda and wants to do another one, and after that wants to do another game, so might have another little run of features. Any sign of a guest for next week, do you think?
Well, it depends when we record, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Depends if any of us wake up, Steve.
I know, I'm so sorry, but I think we got through it, didn't we? It's a tricky beginning, as it always is.
It was a tricky beginning.
But I've enjoyed it. It's a good way to... It's nice to wake up with you, Simon. We should do it more often.
Hello. Crikey, there's a cliffhanger for you.
Well, I tell you what else.
Will they, won't they?
I tell you what else. Do you know what's arriving today, Simon? Is my new internet.
Oh, is it?
Or at least some men are arriving. There's a little sign outside the flat to say, "Don't park here. We're coming to bury some internet."
Oh, great!
In the ground outside. So, like all of these things, and hopefully not like your Asus, I've been thinking, "Oh, I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited for it," and then thinking, what will I actually do when it arrives? What practical difference is it going to make? Well,
you will visit speedtest.net frequently. Is what you'll do.
Yeah, go, look at that. Look at that number.
Look at that.
All right. It's been a fun show. Thank you so much, Simon.
Cheers.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you, as always, to Resonance FM, the greatest radio station in the world. We'll be back next week. Until then,
goodbye. Bye.